Good evening, Fusion Youth. I hope you're having a good week. I hope you've had a good day so far. I'm excited to be with you again tonight. Been looking forward all week to tonight. We're continuing our lesson series titled Influencer. And the big idea, the big takeaway from this is to be an influencer. We want to be the right kind of influencer. And tonight we're talking about making sure that you're chasing good, not evil. Basically chasing good things, not bad things. I have a question for you. Have you ever been through or gone through an obstacle course? Raise your hand. Have you ever gone through one blindfolded? Now, I wish that I had the time and the opportunity for us to all gather together and do this, but if I could, I would set up a big obstacle course in our gym, and we would go through several competitive, varying rounds of a competition together. But I want you to just imagine with me, put your imagination caps on, and imagine round one of this obstacle course. So it's going to be a race between two of you, and you're going to be blindfolded. You can't see. So just imagine that. You don't know what's out there. You've never seen this obstacle course before. You're blindfolded. You can't see. The good news, though, is that you would have a person there to help you. You'd have a guide who, although they are in another room and they can't see you and they can't see the obstacle course, they have a set of instructions. And they're able to speak through a microphone, and you can hear them through this really cool little earpiece that we, in our imagination worlds that we have, that y'all are able to put these little headsets on. How cool would that be? There's one little hiccup though. Those instructions that the guides have that they're reading from in the other room, they're all wrong. They don't lead anywhere. They're just made up. They're bogus. They're phony. Now, if we were doing this real time right now, tonight, I wouldn't have just let you in on that little secret. But you'd have 1 minute to complete as many obstacles as you can and get to the finish line before we have to stop. So we'd say ready, set, go. Think about how far you'd be able to get with an individual that's reading the wrong set of instructions. Now imagine round two. Here, all the rules are the same, including the blindfold. However, the guides can come into the room with you, and they can see the obstacle course, and they can watch you, and they can watch the course, as opposed to trying to pay attention to some phony instructions. They can shout out help as you attempt the course again. Think you might be a little quicker this time? I would hope so. Now imagine round three, where we go in, but in this instance, you switch places with the guide. So they're the racer and you're the guide. You've been through the obstacle before. You've done it blindfolded twice now. And you're the one that's going to be shouting out the instructions. You can even go through and hold their hand and help them get over obstacles, go under obstacles, whatever it is. In this game that we've kind of created here, as well as in life, it's not easy to find your way around when you can't see where you're going. You're not sure what's right or wrong, and you can't trust the voices giving you directions. In round one, you, as the racer, had instructions and guides to help you get you through. But all the instructions were wrong, and the guides were just as clueless as you were. In round two, as a racer, you were still blindfolded, but you at least had guides who could see the way to give you a step-by-step help. And then in that third round, the new racers had the clear advantage over the other rounds because they had two important things. They had experience with the obstacles, and they had someone that had been through that obstacle previously helping them walk through it. So an influencer giving bad advice. Let's talk about that for a second. Do you ever feel like life is a little bit like this game? Like there are plenty of people giving advice, but the advice they're giving isn't always great? Think about that. Has anyone ever given you really bad advice? I've had it happen to me before. I remember years ago when I was in school, and this has probably happened more than just once or twice, but I remember not studying for an upcoming quiz because a friend of mine told me he had taken it the day before and it was super easy. No need to study for it. It's a cakewalk. You'll be able to go in and ace that quiz. So guess what? When I took the quiz, it wasn't super easy. and I shouldn't have taken his bad advice. So you can take that one or two ways. Either we took different quizzes, or he was much smarter than I was on whatever subject that was. How do you tell the difference between good advice and bad advice? Have you ever seen the little cartoons where the person is trying to make a decision and they have a little angel on this shoulder that's talking in this ear, and then a little devil on the other shoulder talking in the other ear? Without even hearing the advice being given, we could probably decipher which is the good and which is the bad, right? Last week, we started this new series, Influencer, and we're talking about the ways that we influence the world around us and how we can use our influence wisely. When it comes to making decisions or navigating life's obstacles, it's so important to consider whose advice is influencing us and if their advice can be trusted. When we're faced with big decisions, challenges, or questions, there's something we need from the people who influence us. That is wisdom. Wisdom is truth turned into action. Wisdom is so much more than simply having lots of knowledge. When I think of wisdom, I think of somebody that just knows everything. But it's more than just having lots of knowledge or expertise about a subject. Wisdom is understanding what to do with all of that knowledge. Wisdom isn't just knowing the difference between good and evil. Wisdom is actively chasing what's good rather than what's evil. If we want to be the kind of influencers who talk about more than just ourselves and who share messages that are meaningful, then we need to use wisdom. We need wisdom. And then we need to use the wisdom that we have. So why does it matter to God and why does it matter to us? Who is wise? Now that we've defined wisdom, let's figure out who we know who is wise. Who's the wisest person you personally know? What are they wise about? What are some of their characteristics? Obviously, if we were in person, I'd go around and I would hope hands would be shooting up and I'd call on you and get you to share these with me. For some of you, it may be a teacher that you know. It could be your parents. It might be your youth pastor, right? I don't know. As a licensed minister with the UPCI, I would personally say that one of the wisest individuals I know, because I see them speak and write on many subjects, would be our General Superintendent, Reverend David Bernard. He is a person that when he speaks, people listen. He uses wisdoms in his words and his actions, and we're blessed to have him as a leader in our organization. Now, I'm going to read some statements, and then I want you to see if you agree or disagree with them. Some of these questions may seem obvious to you, but for others, they may cause you to think a little bit, and that's good. That's what I'm aiming for. You might be watching this with your parents or with a sibling. And it's okay if you and whoever the person next to you is don't agree on every question. So here we go. First statement. Do you agree or disagree? A wise person is always telling people what to do. A wise person is always telling people what to do. Agree or disagree? Next, a wise person has a good idea of what is good or helpful. Next, a wise person thinks highly of themselves. Agree or disagree? Next, a wise person takes care of themselves before they take care of others. Agree or disagree? How about this? A wise person doesn't make mistakes. What do you think? Yes or no? How about a wise person is usually rich or powerful? Or this, a wise person is a good problem solver. Finally, how about this? A wise person is more concerned with right or wrong than problem solving. Agree or disagree? I just kind of let you think on those, marinate on those just a little bit. It's not always easy to define wisdom, but thankfully God has a lot to say about what wisdom is and how we can get more of it. In fact, there's an entire book in the Bible dedicated entirely to wisdom called Proverbs. This is out of the New King James Version, but Proverbs chapter 4, verses 1 through 9 says this. It says, "Hear, my children, the instruction of a father, and give attention to know understanding. For I give you good doctrine. Do not forsake my law. When I was my father's son, tender and the only one in the sight of my mother, he also taught me and said to me, let your heart retain my words, keep my commands, and live. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget nor turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will preserve you. Love her, and she will keep you. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And in all you're getting, get understanding. Verse 8, exalt her and she will promote you. She will bring you honor when you embrace her. Finally, verse 9, she will place on your head an ornament of grace. A crown of glory she will deliver to you. Just like the guides in the third round of our imaginary obstacle course game at the beginning of tonight's lesson guided and protected the racers while they ran through the obstacles, wisdom can help guide us and protect us through life's obstacles. We gain wisdom by learning from others who are wise. When we gain wisdom, wisdom helps guide, guard, and protect us. But we can also help others gain wisdom by sharing the wisdom we've learned from others. When we share wisdom, wisdom helps guide, guard, and protect others too, which is great. It's no surprise that throughout history and across cultures, wise people are often respected and honored. But even when they are not respected or honored, wise people are always needed. We all need wisdom and people who can help us find it. Now, let me ask this question. Has someone else's wisdom ever helped guide or protect you? Think about that. Has someone else's wisdom, somebody else's experience, somebody else's expertise, their knowledge, somebody else's wisdom helped you or guide you or protect you? I have a good friend that not too long ago, they went and bought a new vehicle. And they shared with me their experience and what they went through, questions they asked, things they said, things that they used to help negotiate a better price on the vehicle they bought. And when I went this past year and I actually purchased a new vehicle, I was able to glean knowledge from the wisdom that individual shared with me, and it helped me to make a better deal on the truck I purchased. Now here's a question. Has sharing your wisdom ever helped or protect ever helped or guide or protect someone else? So I've turned and taken my experience of recently purchasing that truck, and I've shared what knowledge and wisdom I have from that process with several others when I've been asked about it. They said, hey, give me some advice on what you do. If I'm able to help somebody out, why wouldn't I do it? I want to do it. Now, we already said that wisdom is chasing what's good rather than what's evil, but let's be honest, life isn't always that simple. Our decisions are often more complicated than choosing between something that is clearly good and something that is clearly evil. If every decision was that simple, that you could look at something and determine immediately whether that's good or that's evil, I would hope or think life would be very easy for us. Unfortunately, sometimes we look at stuff and go, I can't tell if something's entirely bad or not, or if it's the right choice. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with it. Sometimes, though, you have to look beyond just that instant and that moment and say, okay, it may not be bad right this second, but how is that going to impact my life later on? In the years following the resurrection of Jesus, the early Christians were having trouble figuring out the wise thing to do in a specific situation. At the time, it was common practice to offer animal sacrifices to false gods. After those sacrifices were made, the meat from those animals would sometimes be sold and eaten. And the Christians of the day, they couldn't decide if it was okay for them to eat that meat or not. If they ate it, would it be like they were worshiping false gods? And the Apostle Paul, one of the biggest influencers for Jesus ever, said this in response. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, beginning in verse 23, it says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but not all things edify. Verse 24, let no one seek his own, but each one the other's well-being. Verse 31, therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Give no offense either to the Jews or to the Greeks or to the church of God. Verse 33, just as I also please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of many, that they may be saved. That's a pretty interesting response when you think about it. On the one hand, we have incredible freedom in Jesus. God's grace frees us from seeing our faith as though it's a strict list of do's and don'ts. On the other hand, even though we have incredible freedom, not everything that is allowed is always the best choice for us. The people we love or the world we live in. When we're not sure what's good, Paul gives us one way to decide what's wise. He tells us to think not just about what we want, but to think about what's best for others. Wisdom is how we make decisions when our options aren't clearly good or evil. Wisdom means chasing after what's good, even when what's good isn't totally clear. Now, one way we can use our influence wisely is to think about the way we use our words. We should always be thoughtful and careful in the way we use our words. The words we say, both in person and online. So not just when you and I are talking face to face, but when you're sending that email, that text, that instant message, whatever it is, those words, both in person and online, have the power to either help or to harm. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29 through 32, it says this. It says, let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Verse 31, let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. A wise person doesn't worry about how they get more people to listen to them speak. A wise person is more concerned about the content of the message coming out of their mouth. A wise person doesn't only know the difference between good and evil, they turn that knowledge into action by chasing words that are good and running from words that could harm. So that's where it's tough sometimes. If you're talking with an individual, with a person, and you know that there is a lot of power in the words that you say, and your words can help somebody, your words can heal somebody, your words can bring peace to somebody, or you can just as quickly bring harm and evil and hurt. Be wise with your words. Think about what you're saying. Be careful with your words. Use wisdom, use knowledge. Now, the pursuit of wisdom can start today. Whether it's through their words, actions, or decisions, the best influencers are people who pursue wisdom. They don't know everything, and that's okay. You don't have to know everything. But they're on a mission to always get more wisdom. Always be striving to become more wise. They're not perfect, but they're always chasing what's good, even when what's good isn't perfectly clear. They know they have the ability to either guide and protect others or lead them to danger. When we think of wise people, we often think of elders, people with lots of age and experience. But age has nothing to do with wisdom. You can be 100 years old and still not be wise. You know what? And you can be a teenager who is already growing in wisdom. And in fact, the sooner you start pursuing wisdom, the more wisdom you'll gain. So if you want to influence others, start by letting wisdom influence you. To be an influencer, chase good, not evil. So, what does God want us to do about it? Think again of the list of wise people you thought about earlier. I talked about, Brother Bernard, but think about during that time when you were trying to think of people you personally know. Think of some of those names, individuals you personally know. Think about one or two wise people in your life who really stand out to you. What makes them wise? How do you think they got wise? And how do you think they continue growing in wisdom? And how do you think their wisdom could help you become more wise? Now let's take a step. This week, it's kind of a challenge for you. What if you had a conversation with that person? If you have the opportunity to pick up the phone and maybe call that person, why not ask them how they became wise? Why not find out how they continue growing in wisdom? Just, hey, tell me about your experience. But then, how did you get the knowledge that you have? And then it seems like you are growing in wisdom and knowledge. How do you do that? And then why not ask them to tell you their story? Sometimes it's just as simple as, hey, tell me your life experience. Tell me your testimony. Tell me about your life. Let them tell you their story. You can find out. So we've talked about how wisdom is about chasing good and not evil. But that is not always easy it's not always easy to define what's good or wise. Whenever you find yourself thinking, what's the wise thing to do? And you should be thinking that. Here are some questions that you could ask. What is the good thing to do? What is the helpful thing to do? What is the kind or compassionate thing to do? Whenever you find yourself giving advice or problem solving with another person, ask these questions. Ask, what is the most respectful way of sharing my thoughts? How should I deliver my thoughts to this person? What words will be most kind and compassionate? What can I say that benefits others and not just myself? When someone gives you advice or help, assess their input in the exact same way. Ask questions like this. Is this good, helpful, and truthful? Does this person resemble what I know wise people are like? Is this person looking out for me, or are they looking out for themselves? Life is complicated, right? We can all attest to that today, I'm sure. No matter how much you gain, there's always more to learn and more to understand. Chasing good, not evil, is a never-ending journey, but it's worth it. As you pursue wisdom, you'll begin to know God better. And as you pursue God, you'll begin to grow in wisdom. That's because God is the source of all wisdom. The path towards wisdom may be never-ending, but what you learn and gain along the way will be well worth the effort. So get wisdom. Start your pursuit today to be an influencer. Chase good, not evil. And in closing, if you would bow your head, I just want to pray with you right quick in dismissal. God, Lord, I pray that you would help each and every one of us. Touch our youth, touch our young people, God. Lord, touch their families. Lord, I want it to be our goal to be influencers, Lord, in a world that is lost and hurt and dying and needs a voice. But God, let us chase the good things, not the evil things. Let us chase the wise things, the smart things, not the bad things. God, help us to identify the right people, Lord, to allow into our lives to provide wisdom and insight and knowledge and experience, what we can glean from them. God, let it be the right people. Help us to learn how to use our words wisely. God, we're all going to make mistakes. That's okay, but let us learn from our mistakes. Let us learn from those missteps and become wiser later on down the road. Keep us safe this week, God. Keep your hand of protection on us. Lord, thank you for all that you're currently doing. Thank you, God, for your touch. I pray that you bless our church family. I pray that you bless our pastors, Lord. Touch them right now. I ask that you touch every single one of our young people. I love each and every one of them, and I want you to keep them safe, Lord, in your wonderful name. I love each and every one of you. I hope to see you this weekend. God bless you. Stay safe.